Business would be public input. At this time, if anybody from the audience would like to address the Ways and Means Committee, please step to the podium, state your name and the issue that you would like to speak on behalf. Yes, sir.
My name is Ed Chaprinsky. I wish to address the Ways and Means Committee in reference to the budget allocation that the county executive has recommended on Bayanet, the subject of an ad that ran in Sunday's paper. I want to clarify, though, I just got back from my office shortly before this meeting began, and it was brought to my attention that there's an MLive story that was posted, and it contained certain comments from our sheriff, John Miller. I'd like to address those because it's apparent in reading this article that the sheriff has become the anointed cheerleader for Bayanet. And so much of what he says here is skewed and untrue. And I will give you an example. He said that, give an example. He said that it's no secret I have a beef with Bayanet for some time, suggesting that this whole thing is based on some vendetta. And the story likewise makes mention of a 2001 incident involving Bayanet, where I fought back and won. And in fact, the judge ordered the return of over $14,000 in a check for Bayanet to me. If I had ever had an opportunity or a reason to be on some vendetta against Bayanet, it would have occurred after that happened. I thought about a lawsuit, but to challenge their funding over something like this, I had better things to do, and have had better things to do until this year. And when I looked at the budget, I saw the increase that was suggested, the amount that's going to be spent of the taxpayers' money when they're bleeding right now. It really got to me, and I didn't like it. And so I thought, I'm going to fight back again. I think somebody's got to stand in line, and not all of us politicians curry in fear that somehow Bayonet's going to get them. I had people call me in response to my ad, saying, I want to get involved, but I'm afraid to. They'll watch me. And that's the kind of police state it's come to. But I'm not here against Bayanet. I'm here for the taxpayers. I'm their advocate. Let's stop the bleeding. $50,000, almost $50,000, and they want to squander it on Bayanet, so they can roam around other counties and basically bust people who use marijuana. There's no question or secret about that. I'm in the business. I've been in the business for 30 years. Ask any criminal defense lawyers, they're going to tell you the same thing. And you want to continue to fund it? We have better things to do with that money. And that's what made me look at this. So there's no vendetta here. In fact, I pulled out of the archives a front page story when I beat Bayanet. And you know what Judge Clulo said? He said that the charges against me were being thrown out due to the tactics of the local drug squad's vengeful and vendetta case. And he went on, talked about any time law enforcement goes after someone to get them, rather than dispassionately exercising their constitutional responsibilities, injustice occurs. I could read on, but it was an eloquent decision and a proper one. And again, that year was 2002. You didn't hear from me. So if anyone has a vendetta against anyone, it's Bayanet, and has for many years, because I beat them up in the courtroom. And that's, somebody has to try to hold them accountable. They're not held accountable by anyone else. So this is not a vendetta. This is speaking out in terms of the economic situation we face in 2011. Until this time, I never had reason to come before you and try to dissuade you from funding this group. But the time is here, economically, We're all strapped. And somebody's got to speak out in fear of their being the target. People said to me, hey, if they could do it to you, they could do it to me. That's the mentality. So I'm sorry, there's no vendetta here on my part. The other thing I want to address is Judge Miller, Sheriff Miller, the cheerleader. Here's another tactic. Check this out. He pointed out last Friday a bust of a meth lab, you know, and it resulted from a bayonet investigation. Not true. Not true. At least if we put credence in the MLive article that was published on December 2, because they reported that the investigation that led to the meth lab being exposed and busted arose from the Department of Human Services, DHS. They contacted the police. They said, it looks like, you know, there's adult child neglect going on here, and we suspect drugs are involved. So they pick up the phone, they call Bayanet, they walk over there, they look through a door of a garage unattached that's on property, and they see what looks to be a meth lab. They get the search warrant, and luckily the meth lab, if it is one, the alleged meth lab, is ended. And if it were one, it should be. But let's not credit Bayanet with this, folks. Had they called up the Bay City Police Department, or Viper, or anyone else, all they had to do was go out there and look through the door. Not a big involved investigation here. But there they are, taking the credit for it, and trying to justify your expenditure of our money. So that's another, you know, they're quick to take credit for a meth lab bust that they really had nothing to do with, other than what another officer could do. And then the sheriff of your county points to it and says, this is living proof of why we need them. I think, as I said in the, I haven't even read this yet, but I want to note that as I was leaving the office, there's a real late posting on MLive, and I haven't even read it, but the commander of Bayanet calls my ad rife with errors. Rife with errors. You know, Jeffrey Anthony, I don't know, good-looking guy, picture there. Listen, Mr. Anthony. Listen, Sheriff Miller. Anyone else? They're claiming I'm in error? Fine. Let's meet Thursday night. I'm sure I can get Art Door's place, Bart's. Let's have a public debate on it. It's the taxpayers' money involved. I know what I'm talking about. I've studied it. I've watched it over the years. Not only is it the economically wrong and immoral thing to do at this time, but it is not contributing to good government. We are duplication of efforts. We have a Viper squad in Bay City dedicated to drug cases. And I don't mean to downplay drug cases. It's just that they use that guise of drug cases in many instances to bust people on medical marijuana. I know. I'm in the trenches. So let's pull the plug. If they're going to claim that don't know what I'm talking about, I'm all, full of mistakes, then fine. I would ask the Bayanet Anthony and Sheriff Miller accept my invitation. Let's all get together. Let's hear it out. And that's my challenge. And I can make the arrangements. And I will contact them in the morning to see what their response is. And I'll let you know. But in the meanwhile, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize that we have a situation economically that this county has never seen before. I'll tell you something. I used to come in front of the Board of Commissioners 30 years ago on the first floor. I don't know where you were, what you were doing. I was here 30 years ago, if not more, doing my thing with the Board of Commissioners. This is kind of a nostalgic take back for me because I went into law and I got submerged in it. But I'll tell you something, and I want to make this clear. 2012 is an election year. The public is going to be watching your vote. We have to start making tough decisions and correct decisions, economically and morally. And that's what it is, it's moral. When you have senior citizens going without their senior hot lunches because they don't have the money and the county can't fund it, and there's so many instances. I was quoted in the newspaper saying, why don't we take that money and spend it on our local law enforcement? They're doing a good job. Let's enable them more. Give them cameras in their squad cars. Do whatever we have to do to make it a better department because they're out there, they're pitching. Instead, we throw this money, the public's money, desperately needed money, into this group who's going to be roaming over to Isabella County or, Saginaw or wherever. It makes no sense. And when Sheriff Miller bemoans in his article on MLive that, it's going to cost me a deputy if this is voted down. I'm sorry, Sheriff, but you're not helping the county none by making us pay toward a deputy who has maybe 1/5 of his time spent in Bay County. The rest of the time he's roaming around central Michigan, wherever. Thank you.
Ed, just one question. You mentioned something about senior citizens not being afforded meals. Are you aware of any senior citizens?
I've had some tell me at the courthouse that they can't afford. I guess they have to pay part of the fee, as I understood it from them, and some can't.
Did you refer them to anybody at our Division on Aging?
To be honest, frankly, no, I didn't. I didn't think of it. I was in a hurry, and the ladies asked. The subject came up because she wanted me to handle her grandson's case pro bono. And but I hear a lot of this, and if it isn't that, it's other things. I had a lady last summer telling me how her daughter was so much into the community pool that was cut back in its utility because of. They're just. I know you people are so much more familiar with the details of county government, where this money could be better spent. You know where it is better than I do. But one thing is true, it's a fact. It's a fact. It could be better spent.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else would like to address the Ways and Means Committee? Please step to the podium. State your name.
My name is Jerry Charbonneau, and I'm with Ed. I'd say go ahead and give the taxpayer money to law enforcement directly to the agencies. But as far as a separate entity of Bayanet, receiving separate funding, that's just putting them outside of the chain of command, and they don't, have to account to powers to be like they do if they're, within their own law enforcement organizations. And I can tell you from firsthand experience that they have no respect for the law. They'll even perjure themselves just to further their agenda. Any questions?
No, sir.
Okay.
Anybody else would like to address the...
My name is William Anderson. I live in Bay City here. I am adamantly opposed against any funding to Bayanet. I agree with this lady. We need better people to keep track of the drugs to overcome the heroin use. From what I understand from what Bayanet tactics, talking to people and friends, it's not the way to go. So I'm definitely adamantly opposed to any funding to this operation. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kyle Petrowski. Sincere sympathies for your loss. It's a serious issue. It's a big issue. It's a global issue. It's an issue that's bigger than Bay County. Not trying to take it away from where we're at. Can the county afford to continue funding this? Maybe it can, maybe it can't. Maybe it's worth funding. Do you know? Do you know if Bayanet is worth funding? If you say yes, how do you know? How do you know? As a person in the public, unless I'm doing FOIA requests, unless I'm doing my own research, This information is not readily available. As commissioners spending taxpayers' money, I would think that you have responsibility before voting to spend it to see if it is effective. The war on drugs, it's a myth. It's a losing battle. I'm not making this up. Plenty of research since the 70s is going to back that up. So we're going to throw money after this war on drugs that's ineffective here in Bay County, that's ineffective in the state of Michigan, that's ineffective in the United States of America, that's ineffective globally. Well, let's just not do anything? No, I'm not saying that. Perhaps education, identifying those at risk, preventative measures, treatment. This woman said her son was in treatment. It didn't work for him. Well, maybe it would work for 5 other people, and they'd still be here. With Bayanet, where's the results? You're proposing $47,000 and some change. That's 18% more than last year's budget, if I read Bay County's budget accurately. Based on what? Did they have 18% more drug users off the street last year? So let's give them more money to do a good job? Can anyone answer that? Can anyone answer that? No. So who do we go to for these answers? Those are the questions I would ask and hope that a responsible commission would be asking and finding out. Now, next week, you're voting on this thing. You have 7 days to figure this out. Or, I don't know, can you put it onto a later meeting? Sir, do you know? You're a commissioner, right?
No, I'm not.
Oh, you're not. Do you know?
No.
Okay. Can anyone answer that? Any of the commissioners or chairman? If enough information was not available by next week's vote, could this thing be pushed off another week? Or because the budget has to be signed by a certain date, sorry, we couldn't get the information, but we're going to go with what we've been doing for the last X amount of years that Bayonet's been funded.
To answer your question,
Please.
anything can be done, but I do support Bayanet myself, so I'm not willing to, personally, and I haven't talked to anybody else here, I'm not personally willing to set it aside or to refer it to another meeting. And I'm going to answer your question as honestly as I can.
Appreciate that.
It can be referred. I'm not going to recommend it being referred.
Okay. So in other words, you're going to place a vote without having all the facts. The commission is going to assume, I'm assuming, unless someone does the research, you're going to say, we've always funded this. We're going to fund 18% more because I have this heartfelt belief, or I have someone from Bayanet talking to me, or I have someone from Ed Chaprinsky's office talking to me. I'm sorry, I would ask for more quantitative, objective data before spending $50,000, and this is a serious issue. Drugs are a serious issue in our community. Is Bayanet the answer to that? I don't know. I'm thinking that they're not, or else we would see improvements. And if they are the answer, let's see it. Let's see the numbers. That's all I'm asking for. I don't have all the answers. I wish I did. You folks are kind of in charge since you're spending the money. You're in charge of finding out those answers. And a failure to do that is a failure to serve the community, in my humble opinion, in my personal opinion.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else like to address the Ways and Means Committee? Please step to the podium, state your name, the issue you'd like to speak on behalf of, and you have an opportunity to address Ways and Means. See no one else coming. Oh, Tom?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just, since I was the one that supplied the budget material to Mr. Chaprinsky, I just did not talk with him in detail about the information. I think it's important for the record that the budget reflects federal grant dollars that actually pay for the position in the Bay County Sheriff Department, as the sheriff could speak to. There are no county general fund dollars allocated for Bayanet. Bob may recall, my recollection is that sometime in the last 19 years we may have allocated dollars, but in the 2010, 2011, and this recommended 2012 budget, there are no county general fund dollars. They entirely come from federal grants to support this position. And as a result, it has no impact on the county budget with respect to services to the aging, which, as the chairman pointed out, anytime anyone knows that there is a challenge facing a senior or anybody in this community, that they ought to be comfortable in contacting any of us, and we'll do our best. And in terms of the allocation of other dollars, again, this does not affect it because these federal dollars can only be used for this purpose. And we had a follow-up conversation to the initial request between myself and the finance director, we would have been able to clarify that and avoided this situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Bob?
They're 50-50 matches, but we do it in kind from a sheriff deputy and a part-time prosecutor. However, we get back, for instance, next year we've got budgeted between this year and next year over $38,000 coming back through drug forfeiture money.
Anybody else would like to speak on this? Okay, then our next order of business under petitions and communications would be Bayanet grant renewals.
So moved. Support.
Moved and supported. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. From the Bay County, that's from both Bay County Sheriff and the Bay County Prosecutor. Under B, Corporate Counsel.